What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by Ping Pong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce space. What does that mean to you, the watcher or listener? Well, this is the part of the world where I occupy and get to talk with the brightest minds in the space, the sellers, the entrepreneurs, the people who are helping your business grow. These are the people who are going to be coming on and talking about specific topics to help your business or brand grow, whether it be in sourcing logistics to advertising, marketing, building out safety and security measures for your direct-to-consumer website, or just helping you grow internationally. Any of those contexts and those topics we're going to be talking about on this podcast. So if you're new, welcome. If you're a returning listener or watcher, thanks for coming back into my cozy little corner, as I like to call it. We like to have on guests of the show who are just going to be educating, talking as, as if we're going to be me and them today, but we're glad to welcome you in and make sure that you get something out of every single episode. And without further ado, obviously, every episode is brought to you by Ping Pong Payments. Ping Pong Payments is helping more people save more hard-earned money and save more time and effort when it's growing internationally, whether it's paying out their suppliers and manufacturers, or if you have VAs internationally. Ping Pong can help you safely and effectively grow and send money internationally. Make sure that you're putting more of that money back to your pocket and not pay exorbitant and ridiculous fees through third-party software or solutions. Make sure you're saving with a solution that helps your business grow instead of helping you stay stagnant. And that's with Ping Pong Payments, making you grow internationally with more efficiency and effective measures as well. Just go to usa.pingpongx.com/podcast for more information and to catch every single episode. Speaking of which, this is episode 240. Let's get it right. 243 of Crossover Commerce. So we've been having lots of great guests come on. If you haven't heard or of any of our episodes or seen us, we go live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, which you are watching right now. Thank you for tuning in on a busy Tuesday. I'm sure that everyone has it's very gloomy here in central Indiana where I'm located. But if you're watching this internationally or anywhere in the world, thanks for tuning in. Let us know you're listening. You can say hello in the comment section. We'll be able to pop them up on the screen. Or if you're listening to us later on all of your favorite podcast destinations, that could be on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. We're going to be there. Thank you for downloading and listening to another fantastic episode. This week is action-packed. We have 4 podcast episodes coming out with you live, and they're going to be subsequently in various different categories. And I'm really excited about this one. We had to shuffle some things around so I can get him on here, but I'm really curious to get his mindset on this topic. We're going to be talking about, he was actually started an e-commerce website, and he's now helping other brands grow their brands and helping their businesses come to fruition. CEO, founder of an amazing company called IronPlane. Excuse me. I psyched myself out there, Robert. So I'm apologizing to you on the back end, but I psyched myself out. I have Robert Giovannini. I'm going to say that right. And hopefully I said that correctly, because I always add syllables to names. It's my kryptonite, guys. That's why, as a kryptonite as a podcast host, I need to get syllables correctly. But I'm excited to have him on to talk a little bit about what we're calling this episode, building the right e-commerce platform for your brand. What does that mean? We're going to be talking with Robert about that today. So welcome to Crossover Commerce, Robert of IronPlane. Robert, thank you so much for hopping on Crossover Commerce.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for inviting me in your little corner over here, or big corner that may be.
Yeah, I was gonna say big now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thanks for the flexibility in the last week you're here.
No, for sure. Helpful. Yeah, we were talking about that pre-show, so I'm glad everything is, we were able to reschedule in that regards. Did I get your last name right? Let's start there. It's important.
You did. Giovannini. It's a you rolled it.
Giovannini. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nice.
So are you, quote, here's the question.
Yeah.
I want to say you're Italian. Are you Italian?
I'm Italian.
Okay,
Italian. Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Very true. But your bio is almost it threw me because this is why I pause. As a podcaster, I can typically pull people where they're from based upon their name.
Yeah.
This is a little bit interesting. You were in your bio starts with while in Russia. So initially, I start with he's from Russia or
Yeah.
he grew up in Russia. Well, what's the backstory? I'm going to hear from you.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, no, so I was born and raised in the United States,
Okay,
and so Italian American, uh, and I went to the Peace Corps in Russia back in '95, and
really?
so it was a little window there where the U.S. Peace Corps was able to actually do stuff in Russia, uh, which didn't last very long. But we were over there basically working on internet infrastructure and setting up business development centers where people could get in and get online, and so. That's how I ended up there. And then I was there for about 5 years, all said and done, a couple with the Peace Corps and then on to other endeavors for a few years.
So
So
was it one area or were you moving around?
I was based primarily in a place called Saratov, which is down the Volga River, 600 kilometers or a few hundred miles south of Moscow, straight south.
That's really cool. Well,
Yeah.
so why the Peace Corps? Is that something you've always wanted to do, or what was the? That
You
was right
know,
after
I got
college.
it's a great question. And it will segue into e-com, I promise you.
Yeah,
So, we when I had sold a business I had, and then went and was going to do proverbial backpacking across Europe when I was in my early 20s, and I got to France, and well, I was running out of money quickly. I didn't realize that the business class ticket cost more than it did on the train, and
France
so
will do that to you.
I had to get back down to the ecom class, and I was running quickly out of cash, and I realized I didn't like just bumbling around. It never was my style. I thought it was going to be cool, and but I knew I wanted to get back overseas, and so I went back, got a master's degree, and kind of got myself together, and I was looking at opportunities, and just there was this brief window, as I said, where the Peace Corps had this business program going on in Russia. We were the second group to go over, and it just seemed like an amazing opportunity. And so I quickly studied some Russian and jumped over.
I don't know how you
So
quickly study Russian, but
you don't.
that was
It was a
that sounds
5 year
very
endeavor.
difficult.
Yeah. But I had my 10 words, that I could at least, fake it for a
Yes,
minute.
no. Can you help or something like that? Yeah, the
Vodka,
basics.
I mean, anyway, that's reductive, but you
That's really
understand
cool.
what I'm saying.
So with that, so what was your biggest takeaway? Like how did that propel you into future endeavors or interests, things like that?
Uh, just at a philosophical level, it was wild east. I mean, business was taking off, independent, small businesses could start growing and get really creative. And so, if you were entrepreneurial, this was wide open. I mean, and so you just started really thinking creatively about solutions. And so for me, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, e-commerce was just beginning. We were talking 95, 96. I think Amazon was just getting going at that point significantly. And I was trying to code an HTML ecom site. I remember I was sitting in, computer and trying to figure this out. And then Front Page came. I'm like, I don't know if you remember Front Page or not, but this was like a tool where you could actually start dragging and dropping things. And wow, I could actually make a website and tie it up to PayPal. And I found this guy at a market who was selling these amazing chess sets. I mean, just beautiful chess sets. I'm like, oh, I wonder if these could sell, So I bought a bunch of them and I brought them over, started taking some pictures, and I put them up online. And you know what? Like a week and a half later, I didn't even realize it. I hadn't been checking. Ski slope in Vancouver spent 10 grand sight unseen for one of these chess sets. Now, I don't even think we had a security certificate at the time. I don't even think they existed. I mean, I think it was another year before those came about. I'm like, oh, there's something to this ecom thing. You can actually buy and sell products. And so that started this whole idea. I mean, I created we were dating at the time, my wife, we created buychess.com. We started buying all these chess sets, and trying to get them
this
out
is all
of
before
Russia.
the Queen's Gambit and that whole big wave.
Seriously,
on
man.
Netflix
Seriously, yeah.
like
This is early days, and we started importing those things or exporting them out of Russia because we were still there at the time. And then we were starting to get them manufactured, some parts in Spain, and then so we started putting together all these pieces of this little thing, and to the point where I mean, I had them showing at my father's garage back in upstate New York, and I'm like, okay, but you got to check these things, and I'm like, all of a sudden I turned them into our fulfillment house, and which went over well for the most part, and we just started selling these things, and it became a lot of fun, and that led to I was on a trip in Bali. And I'm like, oh, wow, look at all these cool items. I mean, people must need these trinkets, right? And so my wife had gone back to grad school in Syracuse at that point. And you're meant for each other because one day I called her and said, hey, there's a not a full-size container, but a container, mini container of tchotchke coming to your apartment. If you could just work with your landlord on that for a minute, and
Don't ask questions,
don't
just
ask questions,
perform.
just feel free to take some stuff to decorate the house, whatever.
Exactly.
And so we started, so that was our first foray into e-com and just buying and selling products, and it led to this journey, where I wasn't a developer or coder. I've been in this just from the business side, and I've always loved it. And it was about 10 years ago when we started getting asked, hey, could you do this for us? Could you build a website?
Sure.
I'm like, sure, why not? Why, how hard can that be, right? Well, that was a learning curve, but we realized we got good at doing this for other people, and that was the birth of IronPlane over the last 10 years.
That's really cool. I love that story of I think it's really funny how the initial in 90, you said 90 or
Late
late
90s, yeah.
90s, early 2000s, your first initial thought is let's sell these online, which is a whole different concept because instead of like how online was so new, obviously back then e-commerce wasn't really a thing that third parties can come on. People weren't trusting of putting my credit card information or payment information into a URL or something like you said, security certificates were not even a thing possibly back then. I only know these things too and nerd out because my father's a computer engineer over at Purdue University. So I
Okay.
got to know like, oh yeah, don't do these because you'll get a virus. Everything was you're gonna get a virus. It was like that was a learning curve of like you're gonna get a virus if you do
Yeah.
this. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. It maybe internet's a little scary, but as you get online and you go to the direct to consumer, that's how I got involved too. Is I was kind of thrown it. I didn't know anything about selling online. I just knew I like to buy things online, but the buying and selling of things, driving traffic to websites, you had all of this preconceived notion. You're like, yep, this is the place we need to be. So was there more to that of like, hey, this is how business is gonna be done? You found something cool, but you wanted to share it with other people and think other people would find really cool value in that too. So, what was that process of, no, trust me, this is going to be something that's really cool and unique, and we can grow it from here?
I think because I came at it from I want to make money doing this.
Sure.
It wasn't a vanity project. It wasn't, me showing my coding skills. It wasn't me having to sell those kinds of services. I always was talking to owners, particularly in the early days, it was owner operators of smaller companies at that time. And be like, look, here's what I did. I spent this much money. I wasted this much over here. I spent this much over here. This seemed to work. You could do something similar. Let's just go slow and take it step by step and make sure your business goals are being met. And I think that was our unique. I think at least at the time that was, and I had the street cred, if you will, of having wasted a lot of money already on my own stuff, and figured out what kind of a formula that was working at the time, and when things were changing fast and furious, and so it was just always a matter of, okay, let's look at the whole picture and break it down and see where we want to take it.
So when you're doing this,
Yeah.
Airplane is how old? How
10 years officially.
okay, so that
I
was
think it's been 8 since we really
okay.
coalesced.
So your idea came in 2012,
Yeah.
early 20 or late 2013 or so, and
Yeah.
like you said, 8 years. That would put you 2016 or 2006. Am I doing it all right? Am I doing
What are
math
we at?
right?
2014.
And 2014. Man, I did not add 10 years somewhere in there. So, anyways, it feels like it should be a lot more recent. But
Yeah.
so in the time when you're doing that, that's interesting. Why not? So you're talking about direct to consumership. Why not Amazon? What was it about you pivoting towards direct to consumer websites instead of, hey, I'm gonna go on a marketplace and maybe help people there?
So, it's interesting. I've always had, well, up until a few years ago, we've always owned or been a silent partner in various e-com sites just to sort of keep our hands in that game, right? To understand from that perspective what's always going on. And so even from the earliest days, as soon as it was possible, I was selling our products big at the time. Even today, I still think it's relevant. And we would always tell folks, don't negate, don't miss out on selling in these other channels. I mean, you have this product data, that's your goal. I mean, you have the ability to fulfill product. And if you figured all that out and you've got this data set, there's no reason why you shouldn't be in as many malls, if you will, or on every street corner that you can be in as long as the numbers work out. I mean, it's the proverbial low hanging fruit of getting your brand out there and things. So we did early on. I had one line that was only Amazon based. It was another company. They asked me to help them do that. I remember they ended up getting kicked off Amazon because they didn't fulfill something quickly. There was one product that went out of stock quickly. I don't know. It was a screwy thing at the time. I think Amazon still has these, still is very tight on their metrics, but my account was tied to them. And so I was not allowed back on Amazon. I think it took me 2 years to get back on Amazon personally, because I had to keep working through our reps there. I'm like, look, it wasn't us. We were just helping them to get here, and my name was associated. And so I could never get back on. But, over the years, we've always recommended that people be in the marketplaces and as well as D2C. I mean, it's just to me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah, I agree. Omni-channel approach is probably the best approach. I think a lot of people are seeing that now is you can just thrive holistically as a brand, necessarily just in one context. You can grow it and you can start it. I think that's the easiest. I always say Amazon's the easiest way to get started and to get going, get those gears really in high moving fashion. I think direct to consumership, you almost you need it's like a craft or a very artistic way of putting something together. You need to drive traffic to it. So that's a step. You need to build it so that it's an easy checkout process. Every website's different and unique. So you need to build out all these different systematic approaches and then make sure that people have a good experience part it. And then also, oh, by the way, make sure that they convert and have the product, be trustworthy, or the website be trustworthy, instead of, like you said, it could have been any person when somebody randomly in some ski slope somewhere bought it. You don't know who these people are. I got an ad the other day on Instagram, and I was like, yep, blindly, just no problem, put my credit card information into the context and seemed legitimate to me. So there's that shift mindset of, hey, you have to actually have a trustworthy mentality on a D2C website. Is that a psychological thing that you think, or is that something that not many people are thinking of right now?
I think
Versus a marketplace, I would say.
Well, okay, so I mean, from a marketplace perspective, if you're an unknown brand and you're a consumer looking to buy, right? I mean, I think we all go to Amazon to look up a product, right? I mean, at least I do. I probably shouldn't generalize, but I'll go there and like, okay, I love tools, and I'm always buying tools, and I won't necessarily always buy from the cheapest ways, because sometimes I want the support or the expertise that maybe a D2C site or company can provide.
Sure.
But I will typically go to Amazon because by and large, I'm going to look and see the reviews. I'm going to be able to get a more fuller picture of the product, right? And get an idea if this is the right fit for me. Particularly the more custom or the more expensive the item is. So that said, this is where Amazon has this limit, right? As soon as something gets very custom or doesn't sort of fit the frame of Amazon product selling, this is where somebody might have to think creatively on what they're going to sell there, but then have their D2C where they can be more, they can have their more complex products and services that they can offer. So I do think, yes, I think that customers will use that as a validation point. If for no other reason, you should have a brand there just for a validation point. And then they might come back to your website. I think that if you're just starting out selling, I think marketplaces are fantastic because it's low risk. You can validate a product. You can validate your pricing. You can validate, do I have a fulfillment engine beyond FBA or anything else, right? Do I feel like I have the ability to get these products? I can fulfill them. Customers like them. I'm not going to have crazy returns, all those pieces if you're just starting out. If you're an established company, however, and you're looking to grow your e-com base, depending on who you are and what you're doing, in your business rules, certainly the marketplaces make sense. But D2C is probably going to be an owned website is going to probably make more sense to build your brand and to extend it. Is my feeling.
That's well, I like that concept. So, Robert, who's coming to you for advice, or are these the people that are on Amazon or other marketplaces that are already established, or are they coming in with you right out of the gate and say, hey, I need to build a website, I need your guys' help over at IronPlane? Like who's that you're seeing more nowadays?
It's certainly shifted quite a bit. in terms of, it used to be we get a lot of new builds, people coming in. I think that two or three things have happened to shift the market, that our typical client probably has something already going these days, and they're either looking for a rescue, we call them. Things are just going horribly wrong and they need it fixed yesterday, or they're looking for a whole new idea, but they have pretty good concept of where they want to take it. The market shifted in two ways. One, the SaaS platforms, the software as a service type platforms like BigCommerce and Shopify have certainly grown, and the amount of features and things you can do has significantly blossomed there, that you can get going a new site there fairly easily, and you don't necessarily need an agency to get started, depending on, again, your complexity and how simplified your needs are. So that's one. And then two, we've just been at this a long time. And so, yes, while there are new people starting their e-com site, it's not often I hear somebody that didn't think they should have an e-com site, no matter what business they're in, right? Even our most conservative B2B manufacturers, who I'd still say, we're about 5-10 years behind the D2C side, the B2C side, they know they've got to do it. And so it's not a question of like 5, 6, 7 years ago where I might get a whole bunch of people still for the first time getting on. And so I think that's been the two major market shifts there.
Very cool. I like that. So you talked about two major platforms like BigCommerce and Shopify. I'm familiar, and I started my journey on a different platform, on Magento, and I think that's one you guys mainly focus on. I'm gonna shift this. Not many people want to go in the Magento hole, and I really want to dive deep with this. You first off, why, and second, with so much like clamoring of a lot of people are like, hey, build a Shopify site, BigCommerce site. You guys kind of take a pivot, or you establish yourself on Magento. Again, not a lot of people look at that as a platform of growth, or like where I want to initially start. I'm curious why you guys kind of stake your flag there.
So again, we're going back 8 years, right?
Right.
So 6 years ago
in the time machine.
Right. So if we go back in the time machine, when we first started, scrappy and thought, we just do anything, everything. And I was not a developer. And so I'm like, wow, we can build it, right? Can't we just build it? And I'd have my dev team and be like, it'd be nice if we could start to focus on something here and get really good. And so as opposed to just taking everything, I remember we had Evolution stores, we had Magento stores, we had, I don't remember what else it was, Able Commerce, maybe. I don't remember. There was something else at the time, right? And so we would be building all these things, and it became really clear to us that we wanted to become experts. We also didn't want to just build it and leave it. We were really looking for the long-term business relationship with clients. And so when we started evaluating platforms, for me, Magento was the best mix at that time of scalability, customization, and you could get into it and maintain it relatively inexpensively. So you could be a startup, and I could feel confident saying, yeah, you can do this if it makes sense for you. This is good. I'd say, it's a little coincidental, but also not. Right around where Adobe purchases Magento, right? But the Magento 1 to Magento 2 also at the same time. Those two pieces really took Magento up market in terms of complexity and total cost of ownership. Now somebody comes to me, and we really do this analysis with them of, even if they're on Magento right now and they're trying to figure out, should I stay or not? And we don't get us wrong, we love Magento. We're still all in there. And it's still probably 80% of what we do. But I will look at it and go, okay, what is your innovation versus integration needs and the complexity? And we'll start to look at these matrix, right? Do you need to be on this kind of platform, or can a SaaS platform solve 98% of what you need? Then you've got to look at total cost of ownership, because SaaS is great for getting into, but the costs creep up pretty quickly. And I always tell people, you're building in somebody else's yard. It's like owning a great restaurant. You start it, right? And then all of a sudden the landlord goes, oh, this is highly successful. And they start raising your rents, dramatically. And you really can't move because your location's so important, right? And so this is a little bit of, I always tell people, SaaS platforms, if you're stuck in there, you just got to realize there's a business calculus that has to go into that analysis, because if it's going to take you 12 months to migrate off it, that could be very expensive if you ever need to. So depending on your complexity. So I have a long story short, Magento, we realized even just pre-pandemic that the market was definitely shifting. we would have a few of our older Magento 1 clients coming out, and they just, they're growing 5-10% a year. They didn't have complex products. And they're saying, should we go to Magento 2? And we're saying, in our heart of hearts, we can't tell you should be doing this, because you're going to have to dedicate minimum 30 hours a month just for security and support and maintenance, not including sort of growing with it and improving it, right? And let's not even get into issues of making sure it's ADA compliant and PCI compliant and everything else compliant and secure. So that's what led us down the path of saying we wanted to offer a SaaS solution that we could also stand behind. And then we looked at Shopify and BigCommerce with the two bigger players, that we looked at. We looked at a bunch of things, and we actually, for us, we settled on BigCommerce. We felt that the technical stack, the APIs and things like that were stronger for our more complex, custom-oriented clients than what a Shopify would allow them to grow into. And so in our world, we offer the two solutions, Magento and BigCommerce. Or if somebody's fully custom, we do microservices, and then everything's 100% custom. But that's sort of how we landed.
No, I like that. So for people out there, if they're deciding between platforms, is there a way to determine? Is there an easy way, I should say, that is the best fit for either products or, like you said, services that they offer? Like you said, this is maybe like the simplistic mind of me. I not own a Shopify site. I feel like it's a templated service where you can maybe like build out and can get a little bit more customizable the more you pay, clearly. Yeah. But it's kind of a set it and forget it. It's pretty easy, straightforward. A lot of people, like it because of all the widgets and add-ons and the integrations that happen because of it. BigCommerce is a little bit more complex. It's kind of like hey, know what I'm doing. I can have a little more complexity to it. And then Magento is like, you have to build out everything yourself, and kind of, you get really customizable. It's almost like I'm going to say this really, maybe this is the best way to put it. Android versus Apple products. Of Android's like, oh, it's the tech savvy person, and Apple's more of the simplistic, hey, I just want something where I want it to operate. I want it to be functional, and it's nice and glitz and glammy and straightforward. Is that how do you?
I think so. And so when we start approaching those questions, this is, what platform should it be on?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's back up the question.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Sure.
And so
maybe this for everyone who listens to the show. Yeah. I think from the standpoint of, I have a product-based business. Yeah. I want to sell it online. Want to grow it with me. Something that I know that if it's valued later on, I can either pass it on to somebody to have them, something that people are going to see value in. If it's on a Magento platform, maybe someone doesn't value my business as much as if it was on a Shopify platform, or whatever that is. That's on the business end. But if I'm a consumer-based product business, which one's going to be the right fit for me? And I think that's where I would go with that.
Yeah. So I think what I will always ask somebody is, let's look at your needs analysis, right? And make sure you've taken into account all your stakeholders, because owners and CTOs and CMOs and vendors and partners and consumers all have different ideas what your website should do. So we want to get all those pieces in place, because otherwise somebody's not going to be happy 6 months.
Of course.
Right. And so once we've got that down, and we sort of look at, what is let's never think out even more than 3 years. I always tell people, if you've got 3 years on your website, you've done great. Okay. So so we're always sort of thinking a 3-year comparison across the various platforms in terms of total cost of ownership. And we're basically saying, they're like, well, I've got $100 million a year company. Should I be on Magento? Well, not necessarily. If you've got one simple product that doesn't have dependencies on its options, and you're not integrating with a complex, ERP system like P21 or something like that, and okay, Shopify or BigCommerce could be the perfect solution for you, because even if you are putting a lot of business through those SaaS platforms, if it's simplistic and you needed to get off, the chances are it's not going to be that hard to move off later. And so, and you can this is what I always tell people, we want the technology to fall to the back. You don't want the technology to drive your business, and you don't want, unless you are in technology, are you right? But essentially, if you're selling product, we want that to just facilitate your business goals at all times. And I think where people, I think I was talking with a client yesterday, they're on Magento, they're on Commerce Edition, they're a well-established company. And I feel their frustration with Magento, but it's because I think it's never been set up correctly. This is what we call a rescue. And so they've always had to wrestle with it. And it's always and it's a black box that they're wrestling with. They don't have an IT staff that knows it inside and out. And so, to them, it's just like this morass of just always expensive things that never work quite the way they want to. And so we actually sat down, and they need to be on Magento. We looked at it like their product configuration is too complex for real. You have to really rejigger things to get them to work in Shopify and even BigCommerce. A little more flexibility, but still would be a mess, I think. And so Magento for that and their ERP integration made the most sense. But we said, look, let's strip away all the stuff and get it to the basics where you're just, it falls to the, back and it's just running the way you expect it to run. And it can. But like you said before, if you don't, I'm not gonna say it's a sports car. I mean, nobody would call Magento a sports car, but it definitely needs, for many reasons. but it needs to be tuned correctly. And whereas on your SaaS platforms, you typically are not worrying about that unless you're running up against API limits and other things that you have no control over.
And you brought up a good point. I think a lot of companies, on the beginner side of things, they themselves are the IT team, they're the support team, I have to make sure if something's broken, I have to fix it myself, or at least I have to know what I'm doing. So ease of use and be able to, not run into those issues. I myself, when I was doing our D2C website, if something was broken or if I was building out landing pages, I have to go on the back end. I was told very many times by our support staff, that was a contractor, hey, don't publish anything, don't click this button unless you really mean to. It might take a little while to recache, reset the whole system. But if you tweak one thing and it doesn't cohesively work with the rest of your website, it's actually going to be detrimental to your business, and you can break it, and that can lose on sales. I broke our website twice, and that's not for lack of me for saying publish something when I didn't want it to. It was the lack of it didn't grow with us quick enough. It didn't scale, but that was a server thing, not a website thing. So I digress. What in that regards, what do people look for more now? Are they looking for ease of use, or are they looking for like, hey, I want the wow factor. I want something that's going to be like flashy and more like UI focused instead of like a reliable and durable on the back end, like the nerd side of me wants to go into.
The great thing is, realistically, if the platform can, whichever one it is, a Magento or a BigCommerce, if the features and functions are there, chances are the back end is going to work the way you need it to work. And the beautiful thing is, the front end can be and should be what you need it to be. And so, because you can run these headless now, which means we can get in and, using progressive web apps, PWA and everything else, and make these beautiful designs on the front. Or you can buy a theme, for better or for worse, and that's got its own issues. But if you can fit within the constraints of a pre-purchased theme, that can also be a solution to get you a lot of the wow factor. And then most people are somewhere in the middle of those two things. But I think we're seeing more sophistication in terms of people realizing that they should expect the platform to work. And then they want to focus their energy on making a great customer experience. And because this is how, you've got a widget that, you're competing with 4,000 other vendors with a very similar or complementary widget, right? That, you've got to get somebody's attention. Your site's got to work. And the basics are still there, right? It's got to be fast. And it's got to be easy to check out. If you haven't solved those two issues, there's not much we can do. But once you get past those two things, which every website should be able to do, if not, then something's horribly wrong. We tell people, we're like, look, let's get into how are you going to make these products sing? How are you going to make them stand out? I love one of our clients, Gat Creek. They're a US-based manufacturer of wonderful furniture. And you go on their site now, and they worked with 3Kit, one of our partners, to do 3D virtualization of every single one of their finishes. So because you can't have a sample, there'd be 40,000 samples of their furniture in every single thing they build. So a dresser comes in 3 different wood styles and 10 different finishes and all these things and different brass knobs. And with 3Kit, we were able to virtualize all of that, integrate it 100% into Magento, so that all the options and pricing, as you're seeing the 3D virtualization come up of the colors, you're also getting true pricing and based on all those options. That would be very hard to do to that level of configuration. You could certainly do the 3D part of it, but all the costing and things in a Shopify, it can be done. It can be done in any platform, but it gets harder and harder. And this is where Magento really lets this furniture company stand out in a way that I think is fantastic. Not to mention it's being, not them particular other furniture companies we have, same thing, but all that costing is being driven from an ERP system live. And so, and it's a cost up, for pricing, and not only for consumer, but then for wholesalers and sales reps coming in and needing to get pricing and quotes and B2B. This is where your more complex platforms quickly give you what you need to grow and scale.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like I think a lot of that makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, jumped around a lot there.
No,
But,
no, it's fine.
yeah.
So Robert, I a couple other things I know of, maybe of note, that when people are going through this, I think there's something curious, like you had mentioned earlier, of as people are coming on marketplaces, which again, there's a lot of benefits and pros and cons that come with it. Obviously, the cons would be, oh, I have to pay to, you know, referral fees or storage fees and stuff like that. But the logistics of it all is that's where shoppers are. People love the perks of it, of I can get my products quickly, effectively, efficiently, so on and so forth. There's a cool kind of like crossover, lack of a podcast pun. There's no lack of podcast puns here. There's a crossover between Amazon and direct to consumer. That's kind of interesting that they announced last week. That I'm curious to hear your thoughts are. There's Amazon it's kind of a twist on the version of merchant fulfilled network that they're having, but it's the ability to fulfill and have Amazon purchase through Amazon on your D2C website. And it's a cool concept of, hey, if your products are there, you can still trust the Amazon brand that it's going to be fulfilled through their logistics chains, their resources, things like that. Have you heard of that? What's
I
kind of your
haven't.
take
I
on?
feel like I should have.
Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up and we
Okay.
can circle back to it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll bridge the gap here. When people see that trusted of ways to either, again, I talked about having the idea of putting a credit card into into a website. Where do people get the most trust of when it's going to D2C websites? Because obviously we were talking about marketplaces, people know the name, the brand, so on and so forth. Where do people lack trust or need to see the trust? Is it the payment service provider side? Is it the certificate website certificate, HTTPS, so on and so forth? What are people looking for that you feel like need to have that trust factor in order to make that inevitable purchase?
I think if the site is flashing as secure, the site is not secure, I think that's basics. That's most consumers are going to go, no, probably not going to do something here, even if they don't understand why they shouldn't. I think that most consumers, that's a flag. I'm going to move on. But assuming you've solved that, because those are pretty quickly solved and they're basics, right? I've gone back and forth over the years. I tend to think give more people ways to pay at checkout. I think for some people, I want to pay with Amazon because I feel like it's going to safeguard me in some way. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, just offering people multiple ways to pay is always a good thing because, everybody has a slightly different preference and it doesn't cost you really very much more other than some accounting in the back end to offer various payment methods. So I think and I think it also just establishes a little more of your credibility, but I don't think it makes or breaks the credibility on the site of whether, at least in my case, or that I've heard from our clients, that somebody will put in a credit card. I think it's the other pieces. I think it's you want to show that your site, stupid things, right? Don't have your copyright say 2018 on the bottom, right?
Right.
Right. I know.
Which I have a question for that. Is that what does that stem from? I think people, when they see that, is that important? I think I'm a little hesitant on saying, is that a business thing? Is that a website thing? What does that stem from?
Having that down there, or just in
Yeah,
general?
it's just like copyright and then put year
I
of.
think
Do
that
you think like it's a book
a
or
designer
it
made the site in 2016, and nobody has updated the page since then, and so that's what or it's an oversight, and it seems so trivial, but it's like, gosh, are these people for real? Are they still here? It's 2022, right? And so I just think that if I see 2022 means, oh well, somebody's looked at this thing, particularly if you're an unknown brand or you're a small brand, right? So it's little things like that. I think that when a consumer's coming to a site, you've got a split second there that everything should load and look nice, right? So if things look like they should look, you're going to move on. If they don't look like they should look, pictures are going wrong, the site is not loading, you're probably, your credibility factor is dropping significantly. To get the sale, I think there's nothing better than social affirmation. I think that, whether it's your, and I'm going to use this, I'm going to say TikTok. I you will not find me anywhere there because I got to learn this now. Apparently, my 12-year-old niece was like, "You got to be on TikTok," and I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." But I was talking to a woman who runs Beverly Hills Lingerie, and they very much are. She owns the company, and they've built their brand a lot on TikTok and well established. And but whether it's there or Facebook or Twitter, wherever your market is where you got to be. But I think having that kind of live or dynamic information showing up on your site, it counters the copyright thing, right? Or validates we're here, we're active, we're available. I think live chat, I think anything that somebody can validate that there's a person there, that if I have a problem, I can call somebody, I can deal with it, I can ask a question. That I think is almost enough for most consumers.
Is that going to be more of a like what would be like a third party thing? Because we used to have not McAfee. There's like a web web something
trust marks and things
trust,
like that.
Yeah, basically like what are the trust in reliable ways that people can say like, oh yeah, I can build that up. Like trust bars would be one thing. Like, oh yeah, ping pong is featured on these websites. For example, that's an easy trust bar for people to say, oh, they're legitimate, they have like media coverage, so on and so forth. But with direct to consumer companies, I would assume there would be
Product
like,
reviews.
yeah, like obviously on the payment side, you're like, they're protected by Stripe, or they take Stripe, or whatever it is. And the website, there's all these different ways that I know from the back end that we tout that we're safe, secure, and reliable. But is it as simple as like, hey, making sure that you have customer reviews and they can find them in their social proof?
I think so. I
thought there was gonna be something more.
No, okay. The problem is nobody, people aren't doing it as much as they should. I think that.
What do you mean by that?
I think brands know they should get into this, but I think that they don't. This is what we talk about. When I'm talking to brands, I'm like, look, we want your technology, the nuts and bolts of technology, to not be the thing you're focusing on. You want to rely on us to do that for you. You want us to quarterly sit down with a strategic plan and say, okay, we're going to make sure you're secure. We're going to make sure you're ADA compliant. We're going to make sure that things are working the way they should work, that your API integrations are working, and we're going to execute whatever new functions and features you need. But from the marketing side, from the front end side, now our agency will only go so far as conversion rate optimization and UX optimization because we do front end design, right? And so, but we're also telling people you need to do all these other pieces of the digital marketing equation to build brand, to make your site sticky, to make people want to come back, to show that you're living, breathing, and I'm not saying it has to be an exciting place to be, but if someone's going to buy your product, they should buy it from you, because they're going to get something added versus just going to Amazon and getting it there. And that's where we're always trying to get people to think about how they can incorporate, whether it's content from their team, whether it's social proof, whether it is honestly feeding their products from their website, interestingly, into your Instagram marketplaces or into these other social areas where you can buy direct there, because you're going to get more social proof on those platforms in some ways. But I would make sure I'm copying and pasting or importing that data into my main website as well. So it's always this kind of back and forth and revalidation.
I like that. I think like you said, it's like the word of mouth. Like no one trusts anything more than just if your friends or family say something like, hey, you should go buy this company, or just a friend saying, oh yeah, I bought these shoes online and this is the brand. Like, to me, that's almost like hey, if you receive the product, it triggers the buyer psychology of, hey, you got your product, check. Oh, those look nice, check. I can see it in real life, check. Like those things always matter. So I think it's really cool to kind of hear you, like you said, social proof of what's most important on a website. I think ultimately like social proof, and if there's a shareability or a functionality of, hey, you can still go back to it, or hey, join our community on Facebook, or something along those lines where it goes externalized instead of just on there. I think that makes sense.
I think so. I think getting blogs written about your products. I met with this guy, what the heck is his name? But Hashtag Paid is the company, and they're an influencer marketing group. They basically get influencers to write about your products and do it on your TikTok and elsewhere. And I think for certain brands, this is a no-brainer way. If you don't have the ability to do it in-house, I think these are low-cost ways to at least start to build that social proof and stand, and kind of rise above the noise. And uh, so one or another, I think all brands need to be thinking this way.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I found the article. If you saw me on the screen looking around, and everyone else is probably figuring out what is Ryan clicking and trying to find. I finally found in the company and the or what the service is. I'm gonna put it here in the comment section for everyone who was talking about earlier. It's called it's from PC Mag. Obviously, you can just search the program. It's called Buy with Prime for third party online stores. So the essential, and I'll be talking about this in other content that we talk about here on Crossover Commerce. We're actually going to be talking in a podcast here on Friday about it. Why it's kind of a repackaging issue, or not issue, repackaging of an old program, Merchant Fulfill Network. So it's for third party. Essentially, it's allowing third party online stores to integrate with Prime shopping experience for their customers. You can do buy with Prime and have a checkout ecosystem, go through the Prime widget essentially. Whether it be Prime shopping or whatever for products located in an Amazon fulfilled warehouse, you can essentially have it on your D2C website, plug it into their
are you able to
services
own the
network.
customer at that point? Do you still grab, like,
That's
does
the
it?
tricky part, and that's a very good point. That's the tricky part of a lot of people don't think that's the key. A lot of Amazon is always finding different ways, Robert, as you probably know, to needs insight into the other dimensional aspects of buying online, and they don't have outside resources of DTC websites. Obviously, they don't own Shopify, they don't own BigCommerce, they own Magento. This is the way a lot of people in the Amazon community believe of having insight into that data aspect of who is shopping on D2C websites, building a customer avatar, and if we can somehow get them to purchase back into our ecosystem, we are now getting insight onto data, but also onto the buyer behavior, even more so than just on our marketplace. So it's kind of a, do
I
I
don't like
want
it.
Amazon to have that customer?
I don't like it.
Or
I don't like it.
right. So what do you? So for, what I'm going to ask you is, why don't you like it?
You've spent all this money getting people to your website somehow, some way. Paid search, SEO, social proof, content creation, live chat, whatever you've done. You pay your 15% over at Amazon because they're bringing the customers there. But if I've spent my 15, 20, 30% to bring a direct to customer to my website, and I'm now potentially not going to own that record, or they're now going back into the Amazon ecosystem, I don't know. I feel like that I would have to look at that very closely to see, or test it to make sure the numbers and the whole thing fits with my business model going forward, I think, because that would concern me for sure.
Right.
And I don't know how much more validation. I mean, I would test conversion rate and all those good things, but I'm not sure that you gain that much by having an Amazon Prime widget on the website. I think for some people, you might who absolutely love Amazon Prime and love Amazon, right? But by and large, I don't know that it would make me want to check out any more than just having the ability to do Google Pay or Stripe or Ping, any of the various payment systems. So
I like to be cynical in this aspect. I look at both sides of the coin. Both would be, I know that there's websites that direct consumers to purchase directly from Amazon on their websites. That is the thing. I think that it's a flexibility option, clearly, of, hey, now we talked about previously buy now, pay laters. We talked about, obviously, I think this is kind of a play against a couple different components of a Stripe capacity. Obviously, if you're not converting on your website, that conversion no longer happens. Stripe now loses out on a conversion. So that affects them. Like I said, you as a brand, you're not collecting customer data maybe as much anymore. Again, and the limited knowledge and research I've done on this, again, this was announced last week or last couple days, within 10 days ago. Super interesting to know that this is Amazon's play to, hey, make it convenient for a seller, which again, if they don't have a D2C website or they want to make something simplistic or something out there, it's their way to kind of help you along with the process, so you don't have to fulfill it in a third-party network or have it in a different warehouse, so on and so forth. You can just ship it all to Amazon,
but
and
you can
they'll
do that
fulfill
now,
it to you.
though, right? I mean, that's we're always integrating. So I'd say half our clients sell on Amazon marketplaces, or maybe 80% of them, I don't even know anymore. But at the end of the day, we're part of what we help them all do is make sure that everything is integrated, so that your order management, your fulfillment, whether it's coming from Amazon's warehouses or your other warehouses or a mixture of the two, right? All of that's happening anyway, and you're managing that across your platforms. And so I'm not sure why somebody would absolutely need to put somebody back to Amazon for fulfillment in that case, if you already have a D2C site. But
Absolutely.
you
Well,
know,
I'm curious for the listeners out there, if you're watching this,
yeah,
check it out in the comments. I know on YouTube, and Facebook, it pops up
yeah,
on LinkedIn. Um, if you search for buy now, or excuse me, let me find buy now, buy with Prime is the program
okay,
initiative called Buy with Prime. Again, there's YouTube videos about it. There's news articles about it. If you search Buy with Prime, we're going to be talking about it on the podcast on Friday. Super excited about it. We were supposed to talk about this past Friday because my go-to person I call everyone who's come on the show friends with the show. He is an adamant person of, I know what they're doing. This is why it's bad for Amazon sellers and D2C consumers. And this is just a repackaging and insight into what Amazon is trying to do. Again,
yeah,
it's a good thing for beginner sellers, and I think people are trying to grow. But again, it's a bigger play in the world of D2C commerce. And again, I think Robert, you nailed it on the head. Of if I'm driving all this traffic to my D2C website, why would I want Amazon to get the conversion? And
yeah,
again, I'm sure that there's various different ways of like who's getting the conversion, how much am I paying for it. I think maybe they take down your referral fee a little bit. Who knows? I have to look in and kind of do the necessary deep dive into this. But for us in the biz, as I like to say, it doesn't look like it's a very beneficial thing if I'm trying to keep the two entities separate. This is going to have almost like a leech mentality of, hey, now it's sucking off of my other traffic and conversion rates, and it just throws a whole nother wrench into the ecosystem, albeit very useful and convenient for those who are having issues with logistics and supply chains and having a whole nother warehouse full of products. Is that a good thing? I don't know.
I don't
We'll
know.
see. I don't think
I think
so.
you can have your logistics still solved by Amazon FBA and on your D2C site. I mean,
Great.
whether it's with a ship station or ship HQ or any of the
Right.
tools to, it seems like a fairly straightforward thing.
Right.
I wonder how this would work with a Shopify or sites where,
They don't necessarily want to play well together. Yeah, that's
well,
a
I
good
mean,
That's good.
the whole point there is that to, at least in the smaller platform, plans there is to check out with Shopify payments and things like that. So,
Right. I
yeah,
think this is more of a play on the whole logistics side of things
yeah,
instead of
okay,
the they're
payment,
going against UPS and USPS. That's the initial thing
okay,
of publicly this is who they're trying to compete against.
okay.
But I think it's a little bit more involved and integrated
Hmm.
than that. Like I said, us in the area of thought leaders, we like to kind of look in the pros and cons of both and why this makes sense for beginner sellers, intermediate sellers, brands who are growing internationally. Again, I think there's a lot of great businesses out there who are already doing that business
Yeah,
that are, everyone says simplistic. Let's make it more simple. When
yeah,
that's not always the case, it can affect you long term.
yeah,
We've already taken up an hour of your time, Robert. I know it's gone quick for me. Hopefully, it's gone quick for you in a good way.
yeah.
Um, Kind of wrapping up here, kind of in the future. What's the roadmap for you at IronPlane? Like, what do you guys really focus on? What's exciting for you? What's kind of scary for you? What does 2022 look like for the rest of the year?
I think we're looking at two major things. A lot more on the headless side and real custom UX and design and engaging customers. So a lot of what we talked about today in terms of really making that site not only feel credible and authoritative, but also interactive and fun and working extremely well from mobile all the way up to your desktop, right? And so we're seeing a lot of that happening. And then on the flip side, more back end and everyone's compliance and security. I mean, we can't hammer it enough with our client, and we've got whole checklists and everything else. And anybody ever wants to ask us questions about this, we don't charge for it. We want people to really take the moment here and dot the i's and cross their t's when it comes to security, because it doesn't take much to bring your site down and
Awesome.
to lose your data. So
Yeah, I mean, not awesome because you
yeah,
don't
but
want your
yeah,
site to
yeah,
go down, but it's awesome
yeah.
that you guys are helping people and consulting that.
Anytime, yeah, yeah,
What's the
yeah.
best way they can reach out to you directly? Is it
Uh,
LinkedIn or
LinkedIn is
website?
always great. I'm very active. Well, not very active, but active enough there that I'll respond to anybody that asks a question. And certainly we have our new podcast and YouTube channel, Shaping E-commerce with Iron Plane.
Which is right.
We love it. Anybody has a question, we're always happy to carry on the conversation. And for
I love it.
commentary.
Keep growing the e-commerce space. We're going to
Yeah.
take over the internet here slowly but surely.
Yeah, for
We'll
sure.
have our own section of just e-commerce business category. So just business, it's
Yeah.
e-commerce in that regard. So I love it. Hey, if they want to learn more about that, they just go to your website and it's under
Yeah.
the about section, correct?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay.
They'll see it right
I do
there.
my research.
I love that.
If I
That's
remember
nice. Yeah.
on here,
Yeah.
so not even cheating. I don't even have the tab open anymore. It
It's not
was
up on another screen, right?
yeah, I was like, there's no other screen here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can turn the camera around.
Yeah.
No other
Yeah.
screen. I just remember from checking out a couple episodes. Really great content. So make sure that they can find that on the website only, or is it they just search for it?
No, they can also go to YouTube and our podcast, but on the website under there, we bring, we have all the content linked right there so they can find it.
Perfect.
Real popular was the UX one, which would dovetail nicely with what we talked about today too.
Absolutely.
Things,
Absolutely.
so.
Well, yeah, we'll make sure we have to bring him back on and talk a little bit more about how that's going. And then obviously I love just chatting with podcast people in general of
Cool.
bringing knowledge to the space and helping people grow in that context. But thank you so much for hopping on today. I know you're a busy guy. And again, thank you for being flexible and being able to reschedule for today. And we're happy to have you as now a friend of the show of Crossover Commerce.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you everyone who is coming on Crossover Commerce. Let me go ahead and pull up Robert. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on Crossover Commerce. This is episode 243. I always lose track. This is the bad thing about doing so many podcasts. 243 is what this episode number is. I just need to have a sticky note from now on for every single episode so I can refer to it. We appreciate you guys tuning in live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as also listening after the fact when we release these audio episodes as well. Couple quick notes. Just want to kind of shout out some cool things that we're doing here in the next couple of weeks here over at Ping Pong Payments. The Ecom Co-op event, if you haven't heard of it, you definitely need to make sure that in the comment section you'll be able to find it out. But we at Ping Pong are on the road here. We'll be in New York and New Jersey here next week in May. There is an event that's in conjunction with the Prosper Show, not your typical seller meetup. You definitely need to check out. It's less than 10 days from now. It's going to be at one of the tactical logistics solutions websites or warehouses, excuse me. And we're going to be talking, do roundtable discussions. We're going to be having lots of different thought leaders in the space. If you're a seller or if you're a service provider, definitely reach out in the comment section or look for the link in the comment section on all of our social channels to make sure you get a ticket for this event. It's going to be on May 12th. It's going to be fantastic and exciting. If you're in that area, make sure you sign up. And also, I want to give a quick shout out. It's going to be over my face. The Mexico trip. Also, we're a media sponsor of the Mexico trip. If you want to learn out more how to sponsor source from Mexico and just get your questions answered, there's a replay of a great webinar that happened last week. If you go to themexicotrip.com/webinar, it's a replay in case you missed it. Our great friends over at Norman Farrar, Amy Weiss, Tim Jordan, those guys are putting on an actual in-person sourcing trip down in Mexico, as well as Mastermind, to look at other options for sourcing different countries, maybe not China or India, or if you're having trouble with the logistics and the supply chain, just understanding why it might behoove you to look at another option in sourcing from Latin America and Mexico. So go ahead and check that out as well. Other than that, that's all the notes I got for today. If you like what you heard, make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And also you can follow me on social media as well on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as well. I'm Ryan Cramer. This has been Crossover Commerce, episode 243. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode. Take care.